Throughout history, regions have always traded food with one another, exporting food, importing food. But regions have always consumed food that was produced locally as well. Now during the 20th century, as agriculture industrialized, we started depending more and more on food that was grown further and further away from us. But that's changed recently. There's a local foods movement that is blooming. And you know, if you look at a map of the U.S. and put a red dot everywhere there's a farmer's market, you'll see it all across the United States. And farmers markets are growing in popularity. Since 1994, the number of farmers markets has quadrupled. There's even a new word that didn't exist, say, in the 1980s, called locavore. A locavore is someone who wants to source as much of their food from local farms as possible. And they not only want most of their food to come from local sources, but most of your food to come from local sources as well. And their motivation is for personal reasons and for ethical reasons. There's been a number of documentaries about the locavore movement, the local foods movement. One's titled Local Diet, Healthy Planet. And if you haven't consumed much food from farmers markets and wondering where you can source it, there's an app for that. One thing I think is interesting about the local foods movement, that in a way it wants us to kind of cut off ties with the rest of the world. Because if we import less food, import less anything from other regions, we necessarily have to export less. Because imports always have to equal exports from a region. Some people have thought of the local foods movement as kind of like wanting a ban on exports and imports, not trading with the rest of the world. Is that true? Is the locavore movement kind of like a desire to not trade with the rest of the world? In some ways, yes, but in many ways, no. And that complex yes-no answer means the local foods movement is a surprisingly complex and controversial topic. Although the title of this lecture is The Appeal of Farmers Markets, we're really talking about all sources of local foods. This includes community-supported agriculture, where you buy a share of all the farm's output, and food cooperatives. There are a lot of reasons to buy local food. Perhaps one of the biggest one is taste. We all know the best tasting tomatoes come from either our garden or a local farmer who sells it at the farmer's market. That's why July is the biggest time here at the Stillwater Farmers Market, because people are coming out for a lot of things, but largely for the fresh tomatoes. Food is often cheaper at a farmer's market. A lot of people come here to buy prepared foods, cooked foods, because the list of ingredients is small and they know what the ingredients are and there's no preservatives. If you go to a grocery store and look at the loaf of bread there, it's going to have a long list of ingredients. And most of those ingredients, you're not going to be able to understand what they are. Now, I think bread from a grocery store is perfectly safe, but some people, when they see that unfamiliar list of ingredients, they're fearful of it. And they prefer to come buy bread at a farmer's market where when they look at the ingredients, it says only wheat flour, salt, and yeast. No preservatives, no words you don't understand.
Well, I guess a good comparison is what has happened with something as functional as gasoline. They're adding things to it, and now you're driving around looking for a station that says we don't have additives, because a lot of people think that's not pure. Same thing goes with food. If it's natural, it was something that was done by God Himself for the purpose of being pure and perfect, which would be restoration for our bodies.
Because it's fresher, local foods can be more nutritious. Now, it's true that sometimes frozen food, frozen vegetables, are even more nutritious because it's frozen immediately after harvest, but that freezing sometimes creates a taste that some people don't like, and thus local foods for some people strikes a good balance between taste and nutrition. Linda, tell me what brings you to the farmer's market here. What is it about the food here that brings you? What do you like about it?
I like that it's all in one place, that I can shop around for fruits and vegetables that are fresh, that come straight out of the garden. Stuff you can't get at the grocery store anymore. It's ripe. It's has the taste of fresh. The nutrition value is much better than what you'll find anyplace else.
It's a lot more fresher than the things you can get at a local supermarket or Walmart or anything. The prices are really competitive. It's not like you come out here and spend twice as what you're going to do at your local grocery store. It's fresh, it's local. You get to meet people in the community, build relationships. We've been coming out here. This is our second year, and we know a couple of the farmers local, and kind of they know what we're coming to get from them. And it's a fun thing to do, to be a part of the community on Saturday morning.
You sell locally raised beef.
Yes.
What is it about that beef that you think some people like?
Usually the first questions they'll ask is whether or not the beef is hormone and antibiotic free, and we can assure them that. We don't do a grass-fed beef. We do a grain-finished beef because we believe the superb texture and the marbling from the finished beef is a better product.
You think people like the taste better?
Yeah, right. We have lots of repeat customers just for that very reason. We sell out quite quickly. It's our really good cuts. So people really like the local grown beef, and they know how we take care of it. They know that those calves never leave our farm until they're processed. They're not hauled. They're not stressed. They're in a pasture type situation, so they like the way that we handle our animals.
It's fresh, straight brought in from the farms. A lot of it's organic. The pieces that are homemade are really delicious. And we also come because of the people.
What is it about organic food do you like?
Well, the organic part, the lack of pesticides and all of that stuff that's really not good for us. And we're older, we have to be particular about that and try to keep healthy, and we try to do that.
I'm Ethan Wall, and I sell lamb and eggs here at the farmers market. We live southwest of Perkins, and on the eggs, a lot of people like them mainly because of the flavor. They're free-range eggs that we have them on. The chickens are loose; they eat a lot of grass, and so it makes a better flavor in the eggs, and people like that. I think some like supporting the local economy. Some like just having things that are fresh and.
Local Foods isn't just a niche market. It's not just another place to buy food. It's a food movement. Some might call it a nascent food revolution. It's asking us to stop mindlessly eating and think deliberately about what we put into our mouths. It's asking us to think seriously about what we want our food culture to be. And Local Foods, it's about more than just the food itself. And I've studied local foods for a while, but I didn't really appreciate that aspect of Local Foods until recently, when I read a National Geographic article in the July 2013 edition called Hey Beautiful, and it's about local milk in Transylvania. And the story is this: Transylvania is a part of Romania. It was part of the communist bloc during the days of the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union devolved and the communist bloc, a lot of countries, including Romania, they started looking to Western Europe. They started incorporating more democracy. They just wanted to orientate their economy towards a more market economy. Now, most of the countries who did that, like Poland, for instance, the number of farms started dwindling in size. The size of the farms started increasing, and the regions started importing more food and exporting more food. But that did not happen in regards to milk in Transylvania. What happened instead was a local market for milk flourished. People voluntarily paid higher prices for milk that was produced locally, partly because they thought the milk was better, but a lot of it had to do with their heritage and, of all things, their hay fields. Their hay fields are beautiful. And if you come to the United States and look at most of our hay fields, it's a monoculture, which means there's only one type of grass growing. And it can be a pretty field, but it's going to be one type of grass of uniform height everywhere. Then contrast that with a hay field in Transylvania, where it's not just one grass, it's not a monoculture, it's a polyculture, where lots of different grasses are growing, and even things other than grass. There's lots of different flowers, and it's just simply beautiful. And I've even heard that when you go into the hay fields, there's a lot of different scents that you smell. And, well, Transylvanians, they didn't want to get rid of those hay fields. They wanted their milk cows to be fed from the hay that was produced on those traditional hay fields produced using traditional agricultural techniques. And so they voluntarily pay higher prices for milk to preserve their fields of hay, to preserve their cultural heritage. Suppose you like eating eggs, but you're concerned about how the hens who lay the eggs are treated. If you go to the grocery store and buy a dozen eggs, you can maybe see the name of the farm or the state it was produced, but you're not going to really learn much about how the hens were actually raised. But here at the farmer's market, you can meet the person who sells free-range eggs, Mr. Ethan Wall. You can ask questions about his farm, learn all the details about the hen's life, and he's so used to questions about how the hens are raised, he's even brought pictures so that people can see how the hens are treated. Locavores are asking us to become more interested in food in hopes that if we do, we'll start eating better. This is why Will Allen has started erecting greenhouses in urban areas that we call food deserts. Food deserts are places where it's easy to buy calories cheap, but it's very hard to find fresh vegetables, healthy food in general. And he established these greenhouses so people can come and taste lettuce right off the growing plant so that they would know vegetables can taste good. This is why school programs have started introducing programs where students from an early age start learning about where their food comes from. An example here in Oklahoma is the Cherokee Nation, where they have donated seed beds and seeds to child care centers, and the teachers and children, they grow a vegetable, they grow a garden together, they harvest the vegetables, and then together they make a meal and eat the food. So these children are learning where their food comes from before they even learn how to read. There's something called a slow food movement, which is in obvious opposition to the fast food movement. And what they're wanting us to do is cook more food at home with your family. Sit down with your family and eat a dinner. Studies have shown that children who are more educated about food and who are more interested in food eat a healthier diet. Studies have shown that children who sit down at the table with their family and eat dinner, they eat a healthier diet. They have a lower body mass index. They even score higher on intellectual tests. Even though correlation is not causation, there's a lot of good reasons to encourage kids to take an interest in food. People don't just buy local foods for personal reasons. They also do so because they believe it provides something called public goods. And without getting too technical, public goods are goods that benefit not just an individual, but society at large. And they believe that by coming here and buying local foods, they're benefiting everybody in the community. We don't want farmers markets food and local foods to only be accessible to the rich. We want lower income households to be able to access it as well. That's why in Oklahoma we have a program called WIC. It stands for Women, Infants, and Children. And those are vouchers that can be used to provide nutrition, healthy food for women's, infants, and children. And you can take those vouchers and come to a farmer's market and purchase fresh vegetables from select vendors. The Chickasaw Nation in Oklahoma also provides checks to some of its elderly members, and they can take those checks and come to a few select vendors at farmers markets and buy fresh food from them. Some people think that modern industrial agriculture has failed to provide a number of public goods, and so they seek alternative foods. When you survey people here at farmers markets, they often say that they're here to support sustainable agriculture and organic agriculture because they feel that those foods are more ethical. And so a lot of the reasons for coming here is to be closer to their food so that they can have more control over how food is raised.